Reading Naruto Gremory, The Power of Ambition Trevor Chibi 21 Chapter 3. Well, first of all, and sorry if this is mistranslated, but I've started uploading my stories to YouTube, because I know there are some who don't enjoy reading and prefer the audio format. I want to clarify that I'm just starting. Actually, months ago I left the channel to focus on the Spanish channel, but I guess I can come back and learn a little more. What I want to say is that it would help me a lot if you support me there as you have supported me here. Very well. I know I said I wasn't going to respond to comments in the reading, but could one of you explain this comment to me? Chapter 2. April 2nd. Naruto reads NTR's work. Snorts amateurs, hold my beer. A while later, the time machine is ready. Okay, I understand that he likes that story more than mine, but what the hell is up with the time machine? Most of those who shit on me at least shit on me directly and not with comments that frankly I don't understand. Anyway, leaving this aside, one thing, I'm going to take a break from Naruto Gremory, The Power of Ambition, to be able to focus on this reading and on another project, this time of the Naruto that started my universe of fiction, that is to say, the First Emperor. Having said that, I will not abandon Gremory. I just need a rest from him before feeling overwhelmed, and to be honest, I haven't finished his damn peerage because I can't think of decent pawns, besides Rossius and Juvia. But well, leaving that aside, let's start with Chapter 2 of reading Naruto Gremory. Second reading. Hey, I have a question, said Azazel while pointing at me. And I feel like answering it, I commented dryly. Frankly, a whole chapter without doubts was more than I thought they would last without asking some kind of question. Why haven't you spoken all this time? I'm just their babysitter. If they have questions, I'll answer them, but since they didn't ask anything, I had no reason to speak. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do, so continue reading and don't bother me unless someone is dying, I said before simply taking my laptop to start exploring the many, really many options for Naruto's pawn. Even if it's the idiot? Amaterasu asked, because honestly speaking, I didn't feel like getting my attention if Surtsk's was dying. I didn't answer that. Frankly, I didn't want to intervene if Surtsk's died, but on the other hand, if he died, I wouldn't see Gremory launch a galactic explosion in his face. Yes, even him I finally agreed to be called if he was about to die, although of course, I never said that they couldn't enjoy some time of his prolonged suffering. What a nice guy. Azazel commented dryly, earning a hit with the remote directly on the head. And he has ears, Odin mocked. Honestly, that had been quite funny. Chapter 2. A couple of hours after Natsume's departure, Naruto simply let out a heavy sigh, the air escaping his lungs like a silent lament. With a brusque gesture, he crossed out a small paragraph he had written in his notebook, the black ink erasing the letters with contained fury. It's another dead end, he thought, feeling a mixture of anger and frustration rise through his throat like bitter poison. The worst part was that Natsume had left with his notebook and locked herself in his library, leaving him stranded in a sea of thoughts without being able to put them into his research on magical minerals, which was incredibly annoying, like a constant itch on his skin, due to the ease with which his mind jumped from one thought to another. He could remember the old ones, of course, but it would take a while, given the speed at which his mind worked, a whirlwind of ideas that overwhelmed him. That explains a couple of things, Odin murmured, stroking his beard. Certainly, now he understood why it cost him so much to awaken the seventh sense, and they literally had to leave him blind, deaf, and mute so that his being could fundamentally integrate with the cosmos itself. What couple of things? Zidicus asked, not sure why, but something told him that whatever Odin had done to Naruto, who a year after his exile was able to kill Fenrir, was something truly horrible. How long until we get to the training my son gave him? Odin asked, completely ignoring the Gremory patriarch. Chapter 12. I murmured indifferently. Honestly, it wasn't that serious either, at least they didn't destroy him emotionally, they just provoked an irrational hatred towards Thor and the gods indifferent to his death threats. These thoughts made him lose his gaze in the void, sinking into an abyss of reflection, leaning back in his chair as he began to spin on it repeatedly in an attempt to relax a bit, the circular motion an attempt to calm the storm within him, while his eyes never left the material scattered on his desk, a constant reminder of his failure. People thought he hated his brothers. The truth wasn't like that. He was just disappointed in them, a disappointment that weighed on his shoulders like a burden. The younger brother was supposed to admire the older ones, but what was there to admire in his older siblings? Rias had no ambition, she was a spoiled princess who expected everyone to do her homework. Surtsk's was an imbecile without real ambition, although they had their uses, a bitter admission that revealed his pragmatism. And the shattered material on his table was proof of them, a silent testament to his frustration. I'm not a useless girl without ambition, Rias shouted. She wasn't a useless girl without ambition, she was as ambitious as her younger brother, if not much more ambitious, that is to say, she coveted her little brother, really nothing else. I never called you useless without ambition. I call you a spoiled princess without ambition who expects everyone to do her duties for her, Odin said, his single eye giving her one of his best poker faces. I think someone has unresolved complexes, Amaterasu sang. Hell, even Naruto didn't carry so many complexes. I don't have them, Rias shouted. She had no complexes to resolve, she was perfectly normal. About a month ago, his sister, in an attempt at fraternization, showed him one of her favorite anime manga series. He preferred manga, it was rawer and didn't have as many inconsistencies, but that wasn't the point right now, a passing thought that briefly diverted his attention. Saint Seiya, that was the anime she showed him, and besides being fascinated by the power system, which by the way he considered the most absurdly broken of all due to the ease it had to allow you to quickly climb the ladder, he was fascinated by something else, the cloths, sacred garments forged from a mysterious material that were capable of evolving as the cosmos of their wearer evolved, an object of fascination that awakened his insatiable curiosity. Oh, well, the Greeks misdirect their hatred, Azazel commented. After all, if the cause of Naruto's obsession with the legendary cloths of Athena's saints was Rias, then those whom the Greeks should hate were not the boy who materialized the idea but the one who planted that idea in his head to begin with. He killed Hephaestus, Odin reminded him, although to be fair, the smith god asked for it by wanting to steal his life's work and claim the credit. He also demonstrated that Zeus was not invincible as they made his demigods believe, Amaterasu said. After all, Naruto literally received one of Zeus's lightning strikes directly in the face and it didn't even tickle him, and then he made a damn galaxy explode in his face, leaving the leader of the Greek gods alive out of pure pity. Details. Azazel dismissed the concerns of his two deity friends. Naruto said he wished to launch a Galaxian explosion at Xerxes' face the last time you saw him, Raval asked his younger sister, who simply nodded her head. Naruto always talked about that damn dream that made him sleep like a baby at night. Unfortunately, in his world they didn't exist. The gods, although it was certainly a good thing given how Hades and Poseidon were nothing like the Saint Seiya versions, but the point in this was that, since they were nothing like in that series, they didn't have those armors that he could get to study and, with some luck, replicate, a frustrating obstacle that blocked his path. Because of this, he had to move on to the other way to do it, study the damn manga, its databooks, everything he could to have all the information possible about those armors and, with some luck, find a way to replicate them, an obsessive quest that consumed his time and energy. He managed to identify all their materials, orichalcum, a rare metal present only in the Greek world, but since they had it in abundance, they sold it without problems to those who bought it. Stardust, rare but easily obtained if you knew where to get it. Blood of the god who commanded the army, difficult, but since he wanted the armor for himself, he supposed he could replace the god's blood with his own. The problem was the fourth material, gallium, a completely fictional metal with unique properties that could not be replicated, or at least that until now he had not been able to replicate no matter how many materials he tried to study, a frustrating enigma that defied his intellect. He knows that the metal he was looking for was gamonium, right? Xerxes asked, hoping his brother hadn't done something stupid like start studying alchemy to try and replicate gamonium. Unfortunately for the demon king Lucifer, no one dedicated a response to him during the brief pause they took between the first visualization and this second. It was either that Xerxes didn't deserve their time or their answers, although Amaterasu had said that if he said something did he ever accept it? Adjuka asked Odin. After all, it was well known that Brock and Sindri were the ones who created the 16 guardians of Naruto's army. He's more stubborn than a mule and refuses to acknowledge that he made a translation error, Odin scoffed, completely amused. To be completely frank, the Alfather of the Aesir found it truly hilarious. And even with the 6 eyes at his disposal, which allowed him to see the very flow of energy and the properties of everything with exceptional clarity, they were not proving useful in this damn task, a bitter admission of his impotence. Therefore, and after letting out another sigh, this time of resignation, Naruto took the small metal sample on his desk and dropped it into a trash can next to him. It's a pity, he thought, with a slight hint of sadness, a shadow of disappointment darkening his gaze. I'm running out of materials to explore and none are even close to replicating gallium. Finally, he closed his notebook with a dry thud, the sound echoing in the silence of the room, and got up from his chair, his knuckles paler than usual due to the force with which he was gripping the armrest, the accumulated tension manifesting in his body. I'm starting to think this is a lost cause, he growled to himself through clenched teeth, frustration boiling inside him. The idea that he was working on a project with no future was frustrating, a dead end that defied his intellect. Without a clear destination in mind, but knowing he needed to relax a bit before blowing up his room, he simply left his lab and began to wander the mansion's corridors, his steps echoing in the opulent silence of the place. The opulent silence of the place did nothing to calm him down, in fact, quite the opposite, it made him feel even more uncomfortable, oppressed, as if the mansion itself was suffocating him. The walls adorned with tapestries and portraits of his ancestors seemed to observe him with disapproval, judging his impatience with silent stares. He hated this place, everything, absolutely everything except his room and the library reminded him of the mediocrity that had taken over the Gremory clan, of the arrogance and falsely mastered abilities that led his sister to be a spoiled little bitch, a resentment that burned inside him like an incandescent ember. Our clan is not mediocre. Zeticus, Xerxes, and Rias shouted in unison. No, really? When was the last time any of you did something to improve your current situation instead of simply accepting the precariousness you find yourselves in? Raval asked with genuine disbelief in his voice. After all, he couldn't believe that they really didn't realize their own mediocrity. We can't do much. You guys made sure that basically anything we try is 1,000 times harder, and on top of that, you didn't even break my contract with Riser. Rias told them, as it was a well-known fact that the Phoenix bastards, as they were, made sure to block all their main commercial channels, since no one wanted to get into a trade war with subjects whose tears literally healed any wound and who dominated the medical industry, as it implied many bad things for you. Your brother was exiled, left with nothing, and yet look at what he has become now. Basically, there isn't a pantheon that doesn't want his offspring just to have him tied to them. He made himself from his damn ashes. Ravel reminded them with her best. Do you really want to have this discussion? Because you're not going to win it. Face. He doesn't have a clan like ours against him. Sertsk shouted. It was certainly frustrating, especially for him, since he literally was once the most important and powerful of the 4 great demon kings. No, just half the pantheons wanting his head, a bounty on his head that would make anyone with a high enough level, or stupid enough, try to kill him. You just give excuse after excuse for not improving your situation. Azazel listed, who was actually just listing the facts. Well, there's no point in thinking about this, he lamented softly, his voice a whisper laden with frustration, feeling the knot in his stomach tighten a bit, the anxiety twisting inside him. At the end of the day, only my project matters. As he walked through the marble corridors of the mansion, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the prevailing silence, Naruto heard a light muffled curse, a sound that broke the monotony of the place. Something that made him raise an eyebrow in curiosity, a flash of interest shining in his eyes. His feet led him almost without thinking to the room from where the sound had come. Recognizing the door to his father's office, he felt a pang of interest awaken within him, a spark of curiosity igniting his mind. It wasn't that he cared too much about what his father did or didn't do, but the man rarely cursed, and because of that his natural curiosity awoke with full force, a relentless force that drove him to explore the unknown, that pushed him to find out what had caused the curse, an irresistible impulse that guided him towards the mystery. How bad of a father do you have to be for your son to not give a damn about what happens to you? Asked a completely incredulous Odin. Damn it, even his sons, a bunch of idiotic brutes, respected him enough to care about him. I have a lot of work, I didn't have time to bond with my children. Zidicus complained. It wasn't his fault he was as busy as he was. I am the damn king of Valhalla, and my sons respect me. Hell, if your son hadn't killed the damn wolf, Vidar would have avenged me in Ragnarok. Odin pointed out. I am a damn faction leader, a mostly shitty father, and yet my children at least don't want to kill each other. Azazel said. He certainly would never call himself a good father, but at least he could proudly say that most of his children didn't wish to kill each other. Father spends 1 weekend a month with Ravel since she was born. Raval pointed out, with Ravel nodding. Work wasn't to blame for Zidicus being a bad father, Zidicus was simply a terrible father to begin with. With silent steps, he approached the door and tried to peek inside, spying like a curious cat. However, a clumsy movement of his hand caused the door to open with a slight but audible creak that his father noticed, the sound breaking the silence like a gunshot. His heart raced in his chest and a sensation of inexplicable fear ran down his spine, a freezing current of dread that paralyzed him for an instant. His father, his face contorted in a scowl, appeared in the doorway, his eyes as blue as his siblings fixed on him, but as soon as he recognized his youngest son, the man's expression softened, transforming into a mixture of surprise and guilt, a sudden change that disarmed Naruto. Looking at Naruto, with his dark glasses that always covered his slightly droopy eyes revealing his strange bright and crystalline eyes, his body tense with fear, Zidicus felt a pang of remorse, a remorse that squeezed his heart. In a way, the image of his son reminded him of a young Sertsk, spying in forbidden places with a mixture of curiosity and fear, a bittersweet memory that awakened his conscience. At that moment, the ancient demon realized how long he had spent absorbing the role of Lord Gremory, that he forgot his responsibilities as a father, a silent admission of his negligence. Therefore, with a slow sigh, he smiled at Naruto, trying to dispel the tension that had been created between them, and attempt to repair the damage with a show of affection. He's going to kill you, Ravel commented dryly. Really, if Naruto ever found out that Zidicus had compared him to Sertsk, he would undoubtedly move to second place on his shit list, surpassing Thor, but not surpassing Sertsk himself. Why would he kill me? Zidicus asked, completely confused. He hadn't done anything to Naruto, well, nothing that implied a deep desire to kill him. Because you compared him to the person he hates most in the world. Hell, he doesn't even hate Thor as much as he hates Sertsk, and you compared him to him. I would pray he doesn't find out, Ravel commented once more, unaware that Naruto was actually in the next room watching this story on his own and right now was struggling to decide which existential erasure technique was better to end his father, the Stardust Revolution, or the Galaxian explosion. His father's kind gesture had the desired effect, Naruto's fearful expression quickly fading, replaced by his usual mask of indifference, a shield that hid his emotions. And his dark glasses returned to cover his eyes as usual, concealing his penetrating gaze behind a barrier of opacity. With slow and silent steps, he entered the office, an elegant and vast space that he remembered visiting only a couple of times in his young life. The walls were covered with shelves filled with ancient books and parchments, silent witnesses of countless secrets. A large, solid wood desk dominated the center of the room, a bastion of power and knowledge. Zedekias, sitting in an imposing leather chair, now observed him with a mixture of curiosity and affection, a look that tried to decipher his son's mysteries. Naruto, with his usual apathy, sat in one of the chairs in front of the desk, adopting an indifferent posture that hid his curiosity. His eyes fixed on his father, like two sapphires scrutinizing every movement. It had been a long, really long time since the last time he had been alone with him, and the words seemed to get stuck in his throat, a knot of emotions that made communication difficult. With a slight gesture of weariness, an expression that reflected the weight of his responsibilities, due to his son's way of acting, a way of acting that no child should have, in the end the man simply let out a heavy sigh, a silent lament that filled the room. "I guess you heard my outburst," he began formally, with a tone of voice that made it more than clear that he was exhausted, a fatigue that permeated his words. "I did." Naruto's tone was soft, showing no hesitation, just the natural curiosity of a child, an innocent interest that hid an analytical mind. Something that, in fact, made Zedekias relax his shoulders, apparently unaware of something that many servants of the mansion knew. Naruto's curiosity was dangerous, a hidden edge behind a harmless appearance. "I guess you'd like to know why," Zedekias asked, receiving only a nod from Naruto in response, which made the older man exhale the air he was holding, feeling the tension slowly dissipate from the atmosphere, a relief that relaxed his tense muscles. "I just realized that the lands where we had been building warehouses to store supplies are too close to our territory's border for my liking, and now I have to finance the construction of new warehouses and the relocation of all supplies closer to the territory's capital, so to speak," he explained to his son, with a hint of concern in his voice, a restlessness that disturbed his tranquility. Naruto, who had remained silent until that moment, lowered his dark glasses and gave his father an incredulous look, an expression that reflected his disbelief. "Why the hell didn't you check a damn map?" his expression seemed to say, with a mixture of surprise and reproach, a silent reproach that filled the air with palpable tension. After a few seconds of silence, he put his glasses back on, hiding his blue orbs from his father's view, a shield that protected his thoughts. "Who doesn't check a damn map when building something? It's like the first thing they teach you in land management classes," Raval said. It was literally the first thing his father told him, to always verify the terrain not only physically but also on maps to make sure you don't get into trouble or waste resources. Zedekias really tried to find something to say to that, but, thinking about it carefully, there certainly wasn't anything to say, at least nothing that wouldn't make him look like an idiot and earn him attacks from everyone present. Zedekias, unable to contain himself, let out a small chuckle at his son's reaction, a sound that broke the tension with a spark of humor. With a quick movement of his hand, he snapped his fingers and used a simple spell to make the map hanging on the wall levitate next to him. Naruto could see it more clearly now, a gesture that offered a clearer view of the situation. Naruto observed the map attentively, his gaze scanning the lines and symbols with astonishing speed, analyzing every detail with relentless precision. He felt a slight surprise to perceive the ease with which his father had used the spell, a silent admiration for his father's ability. As soon as his eyes showed him the flow of magic, he had to admit that it was quite simple to do. Something to practice later, he thought with interest, a fleeting thought that revealed his insatiable curiosity, before refocusing his attention on the map. "The levitation spell isn't simple, it's one of the most complex to cast," Ria said. "Hell, she herself wasn't able to do it until less than a year ago." "You don't have the 6 eyes," Ravel scoffed. Damn it, the fact that the Gremoris didn't know how to value that asset in their clan was without a doubt the greatest stupidity of all. True, according to Naruto, it made it extremely difficult for him to be in tune with the cosmos, but magic, sorcery, and any other source of energy certainly held no secrets for him. "They aren't that special," Vanelana snapped once more. She hated that they always threw that in her face. "Naruto is better than your daughter, Naruto has the 6 eyes, your daughter has nothing, he will always be better." Didn't they realize that those damn eyes were completely useless? They were only seeing the beauty and the legend behind them, not the truth that apparently only she saw. That was one of the few things he had managed to figure out about the 6 eyes. They had the ability to see the flow of magic and an energy that he was not yet able to decipher, in such detail that, with proper practice, he would be able to replicate it, as long as he could decipher its workings, a power that offered endless possibilities. "Still think they aren't that special?" Ravel scoffed with a small smile, nothing like history slapping Vanelana in the face to show how incredibly stupid she really was. I didn't know they had that ability," Vanelana said, almost as if she were swallowing a particularly bitter and viscous toad. She hadn't expected her stepson to reveal such vital information about the 6 eyes. Very few have had the lineage of the king of all kings, but for those who do, the gates of the divine have been opened. Azazel commented with a small smile, remembering the man whose power brought the whole world under his command. However, he looked at the map for a few moments before snapping out of his thoughts, returning to reality with a brusque movement. Suddenly, he tilted his head when a thought appeared in his mind, with a glint of anticipation in his gaze, a spark of curiosity that lit up his eyes. "What's happening with the old warehouses?" Naruto asked, with a plan beginning to take shape in his mind like a lengthening shadow. they will have to be abandoned, unfortunately. Zeticus replied with regret, his voice laden with frustration. Although, fortunately, these were not the heavy warehouses we have near our house. Still, they cost us a small fortune, the older man complained, with a hint of frustration in his voice, worry painting his face. Who keeps warehouses near their home? That's asking to not only get robbed but to have your children kidnapped, Raval asked, as if he could hardly believe that someone would actually keep valuable warehouses near their house, which was even stupider than having them on the borders of your territories. If anything happens to Milikas, those men and that jealous bitch are dead. And apparently from the other room, Naruto, now much more mature and having remembered that conversation, also realized that fact and was definitely furious. Although his shout, of course, completely silenced everyone present, who turned to look at me, still debating whether to add Zenovia and Irina to the peerage and reveal to them that God was not only alive but was actually very, very disappointed in their church. He's in the next room, I replied without looking up from my computer. Who's the jealous bitch? Rias asked, earning collective facepalms. Really, who else but her would be the jealous bitch? Could I use them? Naruto did not stutter or hesitate when asking the question. By this point, he was completely indifferent to many things, his indifference a shield against emotions. According to what some of the servants had told him, that was not healthy, but honestly, he didn't care much, to tell the truth. He was sure he was mentally healthy, he was simply indifferent to his family. And he was fine with that, a cold acceptance of his own solitude. I don't know, Zeticus replied, confused by the request, surprise reflected in his eyes. Simply, that they would be wasted is something I don't like very much, let's say. The truth is that he had a few things he could do with the warehouses, but none of which he would discuss with his father. After all, 4 demons, curses were not something to play with, and he really wanted to experiment with domestication, although not before finding a way to heal his body. Explaining the lack of his fingers would be quite annoying, a pragmatic thought that hid a dark secret. What dark secret? Zeticus asked. Really, everyone already knew that Naruto could regenerate lost limbs without much trouble. Hell, it was one of the reasons why Ajuka ended his centuries-long friendship with Surtsks. Oh, right, you guys don't know. Zeticus was such an idiot that he didn't realize and slept with Kenjaku, Azazel said as if he were revealing one of the great secrets of the universe. He's a cursed womb. Finally shouted each and every member of the Gremory clan. And the grandson of the King of Kings Odin told them with narrowed eyes. The nature of the dark sorcerer didn't matter, at the end of the day, the idiot was the first king's son, and as such, his son Naruto's serious Gremory was his grandson. Zeticus's eyes softened a little at those words, and he felt his heart skip a beat as he saw his son so apathetic, a pang of pain piercing his chest. For that very reason, he simply got up and walked towards Naruto to try to ruffle his hair, a gesture of affection that sought to connect with his son. However, as he extended his hand, he noticed something, a kind of invisible space between his hand and his son's hair, which made him stop dead in his tracks, an invisible barrier that separated them. Surprise was reflected in his eyes, and noticing that Naruto seemed uncomfortable with that action, he felt a pang of guilt, a remorse that squeezed his heart. I will let you use them, only if you promise not to do anything bad, he spoke in a jovial tone, trying to lighten the atmosphere, a false joy that hid his concern. But his face fell when he realized that Naruto thought he was being completely serious, the realization of the emotional distance between them like a blow to the stomach. A slight tremor ran through his hands, and his gaze clouded with worry, the unease growing inside him. Nothing illegal, Naruto said in his usual distant tone, shrugging indifferently, a disinterest that chilled the atmosphere. It was not illegal what he planned to do, only potentially dangerous since he would have to experiment with materials to try to replicate the properties of gallium with a completely artificial material, which was not illegal, just incredibly dangerous, a dangerous secret that hid behind his indifference. As if he hadn't found legal loopholes, Rabble scoffed. One of the advantages of Naruto having read each and every legal text he could get his hands on was precisely that, he was able to find the most specific legal loopholes to do truly illegal things without breaking the law. Alright, I'll talk to you about this later, okay? Zeticus said in a conciliatory tone, an attempt to keep the peace. Now I think Rias invited Sana over to play, why don't you go say hello, he suggested with a forced smile, a request that sounded more like an order. Naruto rolled his eyes behind his dark glasses and left the room without a word, a silent escape from an uncomfortable situation. He knew his father would ask Rias if he had gone to visit her, so, to avoid problems, he would go for 5 minutes and then leave. He was not in the mood to deal with Rias and Akeno. He could deal with Sana, she was relatively pleasant if you overlooked how rigid she was. Even he, who was indifferent, was not that rigid, a cold pragmatism that guided his actions. As soon as Naruto left, Zeticus closed the door and dropped into the chair his son had just sat in. He exhaled heavily, a sound laden with weariness and frustration, a silent lament that filled the room, and he covered his face with one hand, a gesture of silent despair. Father of the century, he thought ironically, dragging the words with bitterness, a sarcasm that hid his pain. I would rather say father of the era, Odin commented dryly. He couldn't call him father of the ages because, objectively speaking, the first 4 great eras had worse fathers. The first king's father was the worst of all, actually. Zeticus would be in 3rd place at most, maybe 4th. And he doesn't even try anything to correct it. It's no wonder that out of his 3 children, the only one who distanced himself from the family isn't a completely useless person, Amaterasu commented. Frankly, even her father wasn't as completely idiotic as Zeticus, and her father killed one of his brothers at birth. Hey! Shouted the 3 Gremory siblings, indignant, although Naruto's was for daring to compare him to his 2 siblings and call him useless. He's going to spank me, isn't he? Amaterasu asked her younger sister, who simply gave her a "don't pretend you won't enjoy it" look. He straightened up in his chair and returned to his desk, looking at his work with a somber expression, the weight of his responsibilities crushing him. Piles of parchments and documents were stacked on the solid wood surface, each representing a responsibility, a decision, a weight that seemed to crush him. I have failed as a father, he thought sadly, feeling the weight of his mistakes on his shoulders, a burden of guilt that consumed him. One of my sons turned out well, Zeticus said. After all, at least one of his 3 children turned out okay. Which of the 3? The one who was a reckless imbecile who led your clan into an economic crisis, the one who was a spoiled bitch incapable of seeing her own flaws because Oni-sama convinced her she doesn't have them, or the guy you didn't raise and who made himself after a 10-foot redhead blinded him for an entire month? Amaterasu scoffed. That is to say, Surtsk's turned out completely wrong. Rias was even worse, and they didn't raise Naruto and turned their backs on him. He still tries to assassinate him occasionally. Oden couldn't help but laugh at that. It was amusing to see Naruto try and fail to strangle Thor with his own beard occasionally. XXXXXXXXXX. A few minutes later, Naruto finally stopped in front of Rias's room, taking advantage of the silence of the hallway to organize his thoughts. He had taken the path from his father's office to this place to think about all the materials he would need to start his experiments, a whirlwind of ideas that overwhelmed him. So far, he only had a couple of ideas. Number 1, ask Rabble for her books on alchemy, and number 2, trick a god blacksmith to, with some luck, convince him to help with the research, ambitious plans that clashed with reality. However, both were things he would have to do later. For now, he simply knocked on the elegant wooden door, a sound that broke the silence of the hallway. After a brief silence, the door opened with a soft creak, revealing Rias in her crimson splendor. Rias, with her long crimson hair and bright blue eyes, looked at him with surprise, disbelief reflected on her face. Naruto? What are you doing here? Weren't you working on your secret project in your room? She asked in a joking tone, a teasing that tried to hide her bewilderment. Of course, it was an open secret, that is, everyone knew, that Naruto was trying to replicate the armors of the Knights of the Zodiac, an obsessive project that fueled his curiosity. He knew you knew, he just assumed you never cared enough to try and help him or stop him, Rabble said dryly. After all, even though Naruto had told her the story as a sort of anecdote, the truth was that it hurt him quite a bit that his family had never supported him. You know, now I wonder how much further your clan would have advanced if he had been properly supported, Ajuka commented. After all, he had been compared to Naruto more than once, calling the little redhead little Ajuka or Beelzebub's successor because of the genius they both possessed. However, her smile instantly vanished at the impassive look of her younger half-brother, a face that revealed no emotion. His orbs, normally hidden behind glasses of absolute darkness, fixed on Rias with an intensity that made her uncomfortable, a penetrating gaze that stripped her of her defenses. Rias felt a pang of insecurity. Naruto's gaze always seemed terrifying to her, a silent scrutiny that made her feel vulnerable. So penetrating and analytical that it seemed to judge everyone with it, stripping her of their weaknesses and fears. Little did she know that Naruto was not even paying attention to her, but rather to her queen, Akeno, who, standing next to Rias, with her violet eyes, watched Naruto with a dangerous glint, a spark of threat that did not escape Naruto's sharp perception. Naruto did not trust her at all. He always thought she was too unstable, and therefore, every time they were together, Naruto never took his eyes off her, a constant watchfulness that revealed his distrust. Akeno is perfectly reliable, Rias shouted. After all, there was no queen more reliable and a much better queen than any other queen in the underworld, obviously ignoring that Yubelina was much more reliable, or that Natsumi wasn't even a member of the underworld due to her brother's exile. Barakiel's daughter, she's like your knight and your Nico Shao. As soon as they find out you've lied to them their whole lives, or she finds Excalibur, they're going to abandon you or tear you to pieces, Azazel scoffed. He had studied the most outstanding peerages of this generation, and well, let's just say he was more afraid of Saray Bales than Rias Gremory's. Father told me to come see you, Naruto finally commented in his usual calm and soft voice, a simple answer that cut through the tension. Well, be careful, Rias said in a warning tone, frowning, veiled concern in her voice. My father has terrible judgment about what is and is not good. Naruto nodded silently, showing no emotion, a mask of indifference that hid his thoughts. He knew what was coming, one of Rias's tantrums, and he preferred to avoid it. Something that made him remain silent, knowing that upsetting Rias would be problematic for him. Luckily, Sana doesn't have to deal with Rias's tantrums, he thought with some amusement, a fleeting thought that distracted him for an instant. Even if Reiser is unpleasant, it's still a very important marriage, Sana commented, with a serene and analytical voice that contrasted with Rias's agitation, a cold pragmatism that clashed with Rias's passion. I don't give a damn if it's an important marriage, he's a pig, Rias shouted. She had forgotten that conversation. Fortunately, before Rias could even begin to emanate her power of destruction, a bunny to the face sent her to the beautiful and serene realm of the flaming monkey cactus god. For those who read on fanfiction, it's a reference to an old comedy story where the original Lucifer and his lunatic peerage started a cult that worshipped a flaming monkey-shaped cactus. What the hell is up with all these flying rabbits? Azazel asked. Honestly, when it happened to Sertz, it seemed funny. Hell, it was still funny now that it happened to Rias, but where the hell did the damn rabbits come from? Whoever installed the security system in this place is a little out of their mind, I replied with a shrug. Frankly, I didn't want to delve any further into that topic. The speed with which Rias moved to stand over her made Akeno and Sana jump in their seats, a brusque movement that broke the serenity of the atmosphere. Naruto, for his part, raised an eyebrow in curiosity, a flash of interest shining in his eyes. His gaze followed the movement. That was really curious, he thought, remembering Rias's usual clumsiness with her feet. It seems that desperation has made her more agile, an analytical observation that revealed his calculating mind. You say that? Rias exclaimed, her voice full of indignation, fury coloring her words. You and Naruto managed to get out of yours because you beat him in a chess game. When did that happen? Naruto asked, genuinely puzzled. His glasses slipped a little on the bridge of his nose as he tilted his head, a gesture of bewilderment that hid his surprise. He remembered Sana asking him to let her win in a game, but when was it that he was engaged to her? It's not that he had problems with that. As a noble, he knew that his marriage would probably be political, and among the possible partners they could have chosen, Sana was one of the 4 best possible. But, damn, he would have appreciated being told, a frustrated thought that reflected his lack of information. Damn that brat, Venelana grumbled. If only Sana hadn't convinced him to let himself lose in that damn chess game, her damn stepson wouldn't have caused them so many damn problems. I don't have that luck, Rias exclaimed, her voice resonating with a mixture of frustration and anger. A crimson aura of power began to manifest around her, coloring the air with a palpable tension. Rias, please, try to calm down, Sana pleaded, her voice maintaining composure, although a thin bead of cold sweat rolled down her temple as she perceived her friend's growing destructive energy. Calm down, Rias roared, her eyes flaming with contained fury. I have to marry that pig, and unlike you, miss, my parents care about my feelings, mine don't seem to matter. I'll be trapped in a stupid loveless marriage, stripped of my position as heir to the Gremory clan. It's not like you were going to keep it. The clan is patriarchal, and with Narutan exiled, the position will go to Milikas, Sirafal commented with genuine indifference. In reality, each and every clan was purely patriarchal, and as such, women could rarely inherit them. She was lucky since literally no one could challenge her for the Leviathan seat. What? Rias asked, completely confused, almost as if the idea that her position as heir to the Gremory clan wasn't something she would securely have no matter what had never crossed her mind. Oh, come on. You didn't really expect that the fact that your father hasn't even tried to teach you how to lead your clan, even if you're the only heir he has, was normal? I mean, my parents didn't do that with Sana, and that's why they're so frustrated with her for refusing to find a husband who isn't capable of beating her at chess, and they're trying to have another child, this time a boy, Baron Sirafal explained calmly. The crimson aura surrounding Rias intensified, crackling with an energy that threatened to overflow. The furniture in the room trembled and the walls seemed to groan under the pressure of her uncontrolled power. Naruto, anticipating the imminent outburst, cautiously backed away. Reiser is a pig, I'll grant that, he thought indifferently, but there are always loopholes, escape clauses in every contract. Sana proved it with her own marriage, although I must admit I found out late. The sudden sound of tearing fabric and Rias's sharp scream snapped him out of his reverie. Akeno had tried, unsuccessfully, to save Rias's favorite teddy bear, an act that unleashed the final fury of the Gremory heiress. Naruto, with surprising agility, jumped to the farthest corner of the room, seeking refuge from the imminent explosion of power. That's the supposed prodigy of the power of destruction, that, gods, Zekram must be furious to have honestly, I can't even find words to describe it, Azazel commented. Certainly, Rias wasn't a prodigy. She had the power of destruction at a really advanced level, but she didn't control it. The explosion illuminated the hallway and the room with a blinding light, a deafening roar that resonated throughout the Gremory mansion. The air filled with dust, debris, and an acrid burning smell, irritating Naruto's nostrils. When he finally looked up, he observed with impassive indifference the chaos that Rias had unleashed. Half of the ceiling was gone, a wall had collapsed, and 3 soot-covered figures coughed and cursed among the rubble. And this is why I never understood why they pampered her so much, Naruto thought with contempt. Even Zekram Bale himself, whom I rubbed the wrong way, agrees with me that Rias is perhaps the clumsiest user of the power of destruction. Her emotional control is non-existent, and her response to frustration is always the same: indiscriminate destruction. The scene before his eyes, a room shattered by a childish whim, only reinforced his disdain for his half-sister. Bless Lucifer, protect the Gremory if this woman inherits the clan, he reflected with somber concern. If they continue to overprotect her, she will never mature. Rias could, Surtsk tried, genuinely sure that eventually Rias could learn, grow as a woman and as a demon. She can't as long as you keep protecting her, Grafia snapped. She didn't know why Rias had blown up her room on that occasion, but now that she did, hell yes, she wasn't going to completely ignore Surtsk and put that damn brat in her place. My hamster was in that room, Milikas murmured. At least Mr. Cheeks went without pain. He watched with disapproval as Akeno and Sana tried to console Rias, fueling, in his opinion, her immaturity. They're not helping her, they're only making the problem worse, he muttered with frustration. The butlers and maids, with their exaggerated bows and empty words, only contributed to the disaster. I don't deny that the ability to disintegrate matter at an atomic level is impressive, but in the hands of a volatile, spoiled, and capricious brat like Rias, it's a latent danger, he concluded bitterly. I only hope that we don't get to the point where not even Dad, Mom, or Owanai-chan can pull her chestnuts out of the fire when she commits an epic stupidity. As if he could do anything like what I do, Rias scoffed. He creates and explodes galaxies, Odin said dryly. After all, that damn technique was his emblem, and one that was on a much higher level than any technique the Gremoris, the Bales, or even the Lucifers could do, if any of them were left. He has two techniques that literally erase you on an existential level, Ravel commented, recalling the starlight extinction and the stardust revolution, both techniques that destroyed the connection between atoms, leaving absolutely nothing of you. Actually, there are three, one in a much more painful way than the others, Odin commented dryly, remembering how Naruto was able to use the damn Anjo, the sound that initiates the destruction of the damn universe. With a sigh of resignation, Naruto walked away from the clamor that still echoed in the destroyed room. He had fulfilled his father's mandate, and now he had more pressing matters to attend to, such as diving into the arduous task of deciphering the composition of gallium. That was, without a doubt, his long-term goal, the pinnacle of his obsessive research. However, before he could reach the solitude of his room, the sound of hurried footsteps stopped him dead in his tracks. Turning around, he found the radiant figure of Natsume, her blonde hair glowing under the pale light of the torches that illuminated the hallway. Her four tails moved with palpable enthusiasm, and her hazel eyes sparkled with contagious emotion. A sudden thought crossed Naruto's mind: why, in the 21st century, with his family's economic resources, were they still lighting the mansion with torches? And more importantly, how had he not noticed this anachronism until now? They're decorative, Zidicus tried. Decorative is to attract attention, and he doesn't even notice them, with his damn eyes that literally unlock the secrets of the universe for him, Reval commented dryly. Naruto-sama, I have found some species that could fit perfectly into certain roles. I hope this information is useful to you, Natsume began in a firm and confident voice. However, as she approached Naruto, her voice lost momentum, becoming a soft whisper. Finally, with a slight blush on her cheeks, she extended the notebook she held in her hands towards him. Naruto took the notebook and examined it with curiosity. The pages were filled with detailed notes and intricate drawings of mythological creatures and supernatural beings, each accompanied by a precise description of their abilities and powers. Natsume's calligraphy, elegant and neat, contrasted sharply with the indecipherable scribbles that Naruto used to jot down in his own notes. Rias was right, Naruto muttered with a slight growl, my handwriting is a hieroglyph. Despite his wounded pride, he couldn't help but feel a pang of admiration for Natsume's efficiency and dedication. This is very well written and reasoned, Naruto murmured, with a tone of approval that lit up Natsume's face with a proud smile. Although his handwriting was an enigma to most, Naruto's eyes seemed to decipher the words with ease, as if he could read Natsume's thoughts directly from the paper. We'll investigate this thoroughly at another time, Naruto added. Now, let's go back to my room. There are a few things I'd like to ask you. The truth was that Naruto had not only forgotten to ask Natsume if she had breakfast after her training with Grafia, but he had also overlooked a crucial detail: the deplorable state in which Natsume had returned. It was evident that Grafia was putting her through rigorous combat training, and Naruto was eager to learn about the new skills that his older brother's queen was imparting to his assistant. And that's how the story of the Queen of Fire and Ice began, Azazel commented. And the breaking of a family, Odin commented with a tone drier than Azazel's. Does it count as a breakup if said family was already broken beforehand? Amaterasu asked, genuinely confused. End of chapter.